welcome to Policy and Politics with me, Tarun Nangia. Today, we focus on the topic of building infrastructure for a developed India, what handholding do the infrastructure companies need, what kind of enabling environment is required so that they can give jobs to the maximum number of people and we can cater to the population of 150 crore Indians and also generate a lot of jobs. This is in background of the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, speaking about Vikasit Bharat 2047 at our conclave last week at the Bharat Mandapam. We have eminent Indians who will contribute and give their own experiences on this issue. Joining us is Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani from the city of Mumbai, a pioneer in the field of urban infra, which is basically housing for a large part of Middle India. And if I may say, world-class housing that he's been able to provide. Thank you so much for joining us. He's always been ever obliging. I have with me Mr. Ryan Karanjawala. He is managing partner of Karanjawala and Company, one of India's leading litigating law firms at the Supreme Court of India and other forums. Good to see you and looking forward to some insights from you. We have with Mr. Rakesh Nangia. He is managing chairman of Nangia Anderson India. Good to see you, Mr. Nangia, and looking forward to some interesting insights. Joining us is Mr. Naveen Raheja of Raheja Builders. Joined us at a short notice. He is mid-travel. As you can see, he is sitting in his vehicle. But thank you so much for making time. And in fact, if I may say, he's one of the people who will candidly call me on any occasion and give me inputs on what should be done, what shouldn't be done, what is wrong, what is right. Whenever one meets him, he can give us or he shares his peace of mind, which we always appreciate. In fact, the condition on infrastructure and builders today, in a conversation 3 years ago, he told me, Tarun, this will happen in the next 3 years, and that all happened. So I think always a pleasure to have you. We have with us Dr. Vijay Kalantri. He's the one who connects most businessmen, industries together. He has floated companies like Dighi Port, Balaji Infra Projects, also heads the World Trade Center in the city of Mumbai. Good to see you, Dr. Kalantri, and looking forward to some interesting insights from you as well. At the outset, let me first welcome Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani to give his opening comment, and then we'll begin. Over to you for the opening comment.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Tarun. It's such a pleasure to be with you, and especially when you have such eminent panelists along with me. First and foremost, we have to understand that at 6.2%, 7% GDP growth, we are the fastest growing nation in the world. But we are challenged. We are challenged because we still have unemployment. We have underemployment. We have underemployment in agriculture and we have unemployment. Now, we have two examples in the world which have indicated to us very clearly how employment can be actually taken care of, unemployment can be taken care of, and that is the country called China. The years in which China focused on infrastructure and housing, there was a double-digit growth of GDP. And also, the question was that they were able to solve a large part of the problem of unemployment, and they moved a large number of people from agriculture sector where there were surpluses and unskilled people to skilled and other labor. Now, today, if you look at the situation in India, with the growth of GDP, we are able to cater for a part of the unemployment over there, but we still are very challenged. Two challenges are there, as I mentioned. Challenge number one, that we don't have sufficient jobs. The second, which is wrong employment. What do I mean by wrong employment? I'll give you the concrete example. Today, in the construction and real estate sector, we are 2 crore skilled workers short. I repeat, 2 crore skilled workers short. A company called L&T has 25,000 skilled workers wanting. How much?
25,000.
And they have 17 centers for skilling of workers in spite of that. So we have a contradiction of sorts. On one side, we have 2 crores. In the next 1 year, in the next 3 years, we will be requiring 1 crore more skilled workers because of the growth what the Prime Minister desires. So we have a problem of getting these many people skilled. So when the Prime Minister spoke to you and mentioned it, which you talked about, the growth of the issue of growth is not only the growth of GDP, which is the wealth of the nation, but also to tie up the unemployment issues which are catered for in the which can be taken care of by housing and urban infrastructure. I will relate to you one or two facts, but maybe later after the other illustrious members have spoken about how part of it has been taken care of.
Point very well taken. Thank you for the opening comment. We'll go to Mr. Ryan Karanjawala for his opening comment on this topic.
So, in my view, Tarun, the one area which we should concentrate on, and we can concentrate on, is tourism. I just take a limited reason why I say that. Tourism already has a half-built infrastructure in the sense that why do people come to look at sites in a different country? Because it's scenically beautiful, because it's historically significant, because it has a religious significance. Those sites are already there. So the ability to ramp it up can be quick and fast. And there are much less moving parts in organizing the infrastructure of tourism than there are in other things. Therefore, the point that I'm making is that if by a few simple things, if we were able to create a tourist hub in India, we would greatly benefit. For example, in 2022, we earned $17 billion from tourism, inbound tourism. In 23, it went up to $28 billion. But still, as far as the world is concerned, we are somewhere in the year 25 between the 12th and 15th spot. So this is something we can quickly ramp up. And I'm going to make my suggestions later in the program as to how I feel we can do so.
So I thank you for your opening comment. I'll go across to Mr. Rakesh Nangia, Chairman Nangia Anderson, for his opening comment on the issue of infrastructure.
Yes, thank you, Tarun. I think my learned speakers have said a lot. Let me just give a little bit of flavor to this, actually. See, no country in the world, basically, no country in the world has become a developed country without developing its infrastructure. And if the government has a target of 5 trillion economy in next 2 years, if the government has a target of 7 trillion economy by 2032, it is indeed a very tall order. The spending by the government in the infrastructure is the only panacea for if you have to achieve this thing. Because when we talk about infrastructure, it caters to every infrastructure in a broader term rather than limiting only to one sector, which we'll be talking about it. And you see, over the last decade, India has actually taken an ambitious target, ambitious journey of infrastructure development to regenerate the entire economy. And this is continuously being reaffirmed, is committed with a focus on creating a world-class quality infrastructure assets. And to foster this economic growth, what the government did it, they made an allocation of 11.11 lakh crore in the 24-25 budget, basically, which was close to 3.4% of GDP on the entire infrastructure. The capex surge has witnessed actually 5 times in last 5 years with an annual growth of 27%. This has been the growth of spending on the infrastructure spend. And the government needs to ensure that 30% annual rise in infrastructure allocation should be there if these targets have to be met. And this increased infrastructure expenditure is crucial to checkmate the reversing GDP, basically, which we saw there's a fall in the GDP lately, basically. And if this ambitious goals have to be achieved, then we have only no choice but to move forward in allocating more resources, spending more money, like everybody said, on whether it is housing, whether it is tourism. I say the entire ambit of infrastructure, we need to spend a lot of money on that. And this robust allocation and proactive private sector participation will ensure sustainable and inclusive growth. So I have the thought that my entire gamut of infrastructure will be very, very crucial and important. And the government will have to step up the spending, because even in 25-26, there is more or less the same allocation which was there in the previous year. There's a very minor difference, actually. So this is something which needs to be discussed, ponder why that has been a low allocation by the government, or same allocation, actually.
So basically, budgetary allocation needs to increase. One thing that I'll definitely come back to is government's push for PPP, which is public-private partnerships, which ensures that while putting in less money, the government can build a lot of infrastructure, and then we can build asset and sell asset and bid out this infrastructure to foreign companies who will then bid for it. But we'll go to Mr. Naveen Raheja for his input on this.
See, real estate sector for particularly I'll talk about is largest employment. It has remained the sector with the almost largest employment throughout, and today also it has the potential to drive the entire economy as a growth engine. We have to look at the things from out of box perspective. We have a large unemployed base and underemployed base of youngsters, who need to be taken into the mainstream. They need to be made partners in growth of the country. This country actually belongs to them only. We have to give them opportunity now. There are 2-3 things which are required to be done. First of all, as we mentioned, private-public partnership. Currently, we are talking, when we talk about real estate, it is about redevelopment, about partnering in the real estate assets which are maintained by PSUs or the government, or even the slum redevelopment. Of course, this all can be done by private partnership. It is going to change the face of the country, change the total town, urbanization. And it is the need of the hour because we need to rebuild our country. Here we don't need much investment because, like I'm doing first PPP project with Government of India through DDA for slum redevelopment in Delhi. So the government has not spent any money. They have been able to give housing to more than 22,000 people free of cost through our work, And at the same time, they have also got money also more than 400 crores. They're going to get the balance money now. So the land which was a burden to the government, where government was spending upon their maintenance, upkeep. So we have empowered these people with more than 2,800 crores almost, has been the empowerment of the slum dwellers as well. So this is a unique model, and this kind of model should be replicated all through the country. Needs to be looked into from that perspective that we change the country, we give better life to people, and at the same time, government has not to spend any money at all. So this is one model, but I will like to multiply this with many other things.
Point. Yes, okay.
So this message, many other things will be, we are making roads, we are making highways, we are making bridges. Uh, we are doing a lot of things, I think somebody has to be put on mute.
Yeah.
So a lot of things are required to be done. But apart from budgetary allocations, we are looking into the budgets, year after year. We have to do another out-of-box thinking as well. And that out-of-box thinking is we should create plug-and-play industrial townships for the young people.
Okay.
We should look at how to do a real quality skill, development for these youngsters, young population, make them competitive for the world, for the entire world. India should be rather a manufacturing hub, and it should be feeding the entire world because we have the largest bank of the, cheap labor available on this part of the world. And we can produce, and we can be manufacturing hub for the very competitively for the world. We can replace China. China, the cost of workers is much more than India.
Yes, yes.
So we can actually make use of it. And here the problem is that we don't give them a facility and plug and play facility where they can actually, after getting skill development, they are given a place where government authorities don't have bureaucratic hurdles with them. And these industrial cities, these industrial hubs, manufacturing hubs, are actually supporting all paperwork of the government, and our youngsters have only to focus on quality, production, and innovation. As far as much as skill redevelopment, taking more young people into that manufacturing.
Okay, so I gather
What
you are
is
saying
required is
that
that I give you a small economics, one unit of over 1,000 square meters will cost hardly 50 lakhs to government. And one unit can give employment to hundreds of people. So we need to create these hubs with no hassle cities,
yes.
no
Point,
hassle cities.
point
And
very,
so that will actually change the face of the country. Right
point.
now, what we are doing is we are giving them employment through multinationals, through bigger corporates, through other support system. We have to empower them to be self-employed and create employment further. So this is
Point.
another thing which is required to be done. And the most important, we have our very bad laws. Some of the laws need to be changed. In life, Niranjan is also there, we are also there, we all entrepreneurs, we do face challenges in life at times. And if you if you go around the country, travel, you will see so many industrial units, so many factories, so many projects, even real estate projects, which are held up halfway because
Yes.
because of the government policies that even if there was a failure, there should be some support system. Although Swami Fund has come in support of some real estate, to revive real estate projects which are stuck up. But there are a lot of industries also. Those entrepreneurs got stuck up not because of their fault. They got stuck up because of external factors also. So we
Point.
need to give a policy where the real entrepreneurs who have proven throughout their life, they should be given a lease of life, a little support. So 90%, 95% investments which are stuck up, running into tens of lakhs of crores in the economy, they should be given the last mile hand holding so that they can revive and they can become, they can even really put that recycled money will come in our system and create more employment, much faster growth, maybe much better than double digit growth as well, much above. So these are some of the things which government should think out of the box. We should not be living within those written rules and written system that this is the way to run the economy. We need to think about our country, what strengths we have, where we can use it, how we can use it, what investments we already have, how to make them functional once again. I think these are all the factors which need to be looked into very seriously and with the out of the box thinking.
Thank you for that detailed opening comment. I'll come back to you for more on some of the points you made. I'll go to Dr. Vijay Kalantri for his intervention.
I I really agree with Niranjan when he says with growth we are also facing challenges on employment, skill development. So skill development is a very important thing. Today we are talking about 99 smart cities. We are talking about various special economic zones. We are talking about various SEZs. These all have not seen the light of the day, although they have been announced. And a lot of uh, paperwork has gone,
Copy.
but the formulation and implementation has not happened. Government has been talking about minimum governance, minimum government, better governance, but that's also not happening. So these all
Yes.
needs to be formulated.
Yes. Yes. You're audible. Please go on.
We
Please
have
go
to
ahead.
take ahead. See, all said and done, the infrastructure, connectivity, everything is improving. But we need to be done in a very faster space. Then what's happening? So we hope that these things will come up and we'll be able to work on it, and all time-bound things will be done. Then the infrastructure bond. We have been talking about infrastructure bond for such a long time, but we have not seen the, again, light of the day for them. So all these infrastructure bonds, coming out with SEZ policy, coming out with smart cities, and talking about various industrial development projects needs to be worked on very seriously.
Point very well taken. I'll go to Niranjan Hiranandani. Dr. Hiranandani, two things. India has this concept called islands of excellence.
You are able to hear me?
Yes. The project that you built at Powai is called
Hello.
an island of excellence.
You are able to hear me?
Yes. We captured what you said. Yes. So the project that you built.
Hello.
Yeah, we captured what you said, Mr. Kalantri. We have taken your comment. I have gone now to Dr. Hiranandani. We've taken your comment. So, Dr. Hiranandani, what you built in Powai was an island of excellence that could house thousands of people. And India has many such examples. In the west of India, you have done it. In North, DLF has done it in large measure. In every part of the country, there are people who have done it. Do you think these examples need to be replicated? For example, if we need, say, housing for 6 lakh people outside the city of Mumbai, builder needs to be roped in so that tall towers can come in and people can walk to work. So you have housing and you have plants both next to each other, so that in a limited space there is production and means of living, which is houses. China has done it on a large scale. Do you think that India could better this and build such self-equipped cities? Because, for example, even we heard the Chief Minister of Maharashtra saying that Bombay is clogged. It needs to be developed in Navi Mumbai and even outer spaces. Could you sort of give us an idea of what can be done?
I'll flag off a couple of issues. Point number one, which Mr. Ryan Karanjawala mentioned, which is that there is not only infrastructure and housing, but there are also other sectors, like he mentioned about tourism, and you also have the textile industry. All these are labor intensive. So what we need to do is not only to have manufacturing, which is now highly automated, but also to focus on industry, which, like we have talked about, and even Mr. Naveen Raheja mentioned about, things that are labor intensive. That's point number one. Point number two, do we adequately invest into infrastructure? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because you have intensive methods and locations where it is done. Let me give you an example of Mumbai. In the next 2 years, we will add 300 kilometers of metro, which will be completed in Mumbai. You have a cross-harbor bridge, which is 16.5 kilometers across the sea, totally 22 kilometers bridge, which will open enough land equal to half the land of Mumbai. And the Chief Minister says that he's going to quadruple that area by extending that up to Karjat. So that's the second point. The third point, which is extremely important, is that how do you take and see that the multiplier effect actually happens in a shortest period of time? So what are we doing? On one side, we are doing national highways, which have already reached 35 kilometers per day. You take Mumbai, where you have now the coastal road, and we have the new airport, which is coming up at Navi Mumbai. You are extending the suburban railway line, which is from VT to Karjat, will go up to VT to Panvel, which will be extended to Karjat in the next 2 to 3 years. So what is really happening? You are creating both the factors. You're creating sufficient areas, Tarun Bhai, which you talked about, creating multi-storied houses, providing for housing of each sector. What is the real big challenge in the housing sector, for example? In the last 3 years, it is unbelievable that the growth of housing is more than 15% compounded per year. But affordable housing, for the first time in my entire career of 40 plus years, affordable housing numbers in Maharashtra, in India, have come down. It is unbelievable. So what is really happening is that though people are moving up the value chain, we cannot have the affordable housing do. So what has the Prime Minister tried to do immediately? The PMAY scheme 2 has come into effect, which of course is only up to 45 lakhs, but they are trying to see that the affordable housing segment will also grow. So we have a 3-point program. Number one, investment by the government, a public-private partnership, which Mr. Naveen Raheja talked about, different items of infrastructure, for example, given by Ryan Karanjawala relating to tourism, infrastructure, ports. We are going to double the number of airports in the next 5 years, and we have ordered 1,500 aircraft for bringing into India in the next 3 to 4 years, which is the highest in the entire world. So we are doing all that. But what is missing? That's the challenge. The missing part of it is that in each of these segments, we are not able to ramp up or fit in the total box, wherein either the ease of doing business becomes challenging, or there is some areas where you are not having the links. So for instance, you will make a bridge, but the bridge may not have anything connected. You put up a factory, but the last mile connectivity is not done. You have a factory, but the power is not available. So what you really need to do is, in each of these factors that we are talking about, we need to have a holistic view. You can't have one part of it done and not the other. So when Mr. Karanjawala talks about tourism, you can do great tourism by increasing the number of hotels. But if you don't have the roads, if you don't have the other supporting infrastructure, if you don't have the quality of hotels and other infrastructure built simultaneously, you're going to make a mess of the tourism. If you don't have the airports to have immigration and visa policies done. So in each of the sectors, what do? We have to have a holistic view of each of them, whether it is housing, whether it is tourism. And I must tell you that the ease of doing business in the real estate sector, in fact, has become worse in many of the areas. And that is the challenge. You cannot do one thing of expecting growth just because you have the money, or you have the public-private partnership, or you have the IPO, or you have the FTI, but you don't have ease of doing business. So we need to take care of all that. It started, it's improved, but it's not enough. And that is the challenge which we have of growth of India, but we must meet it. The Prime Minister desires it, but we need it to percolate to all these areas. And that is what is the most important aspect of it. We can do double-digit GDP growth. We can have skill. You know, Germany, Japan, all these countries want skilled workers to come to their country. And we don't have skilled workers in our country. L&T has given a report last month where they've said they want 25,000 skilled workers, and they have 17 skill centers. So can you imagine how can we do this part of it till you don't end-to-end tie up every aspect of it? So I think fantastic country, fantastic growth. We need to plug all these links, final links that we need to do to make it happen.
Point, very well taken. Thanks for that comment. In fact, planning was very beautiful, and as far as back before the 60s also, Jamshedji Tata wanted Juhu Islands to be turned into a Venice-like system with so I mean our visionary industrialists had plans for the city. Of course, the city grew too fast and that didn't happen, but he said 1,200.
No, Tarun, the infrastructure grew too slow. The city did not grow too fast. In fact, it should have grown faster. So I don't agree with you there at all. Because India is growing. Can you imagine? In 65 years, we made only 12 kilometers of metro in 65 years. Now we are making up by doing 300 kilometers. So what was deficit is not happening. It is not that we didn't know. This bridge was proposed in 1970. We have completed in 2024. I mean, so Tarun Bhai, I beg to differ. We are trying to catch up. What the Prime Minister is doing, catch up with wherever the deficits are, but there are still links which need to be completed.
Point, very well taken. I'll come back to you for that, some comment. We'll go to Rakesh Nangia on the issue of financing. When you're building so much, a lot of financing needs to be done. Do you think that remains a challenge?
I think there has been a very dynamic change has taken place in previous, you can say 7 to 10 years time. If you just rewind 2010 decade, initial part of it, the whole decade, the maximum lending was used to be done by the commercial banks. And these commercial banks actually used, and maximum of the accounts went still. Why? The biggest thing was this, there was a mismatch in the bank balance sheet. See, bank have a deposit on one side, lending on one side. Deposit life is 6 years, lending life is 15 years or 20 years. So what happened? You had money, the whole mismatching of the balance sheet between assets and liability of the bank created the maximum stress and the serious financial crisis, where you see what happened as a crisis in terms of complete balance sheets, stress balance sheet, especially the real estate side, including long-term gestation projects. They all went in a very serious crisis. So what happened? The government did realize it. Government knows that bank cannot be the right institution to fund the work, fund the long gestation infrastructure projects because the balance sheet doesn't permit that to do, and bank doesn't have much of capital. It's only the deposit which is the debt of the bank. Well, that's right. So what the government did lately, they actually came out with a lot of schemes, novel schemes, and they have eased out actually. They've eased out the challenge in the infrastructure which was faced in 2010 time basically. And you see, there was the bank government created a very interesting NABFID bank in 2021. Actually, it's partly it was there to build up the funding, to give the funding to the banks, to give a funding to the infrastructure. And they found yes, there was a very big relief that came from when the NABFID started in 2021. And they said, let's take a very interesting thing: pension fund, sovereign fund. Just to give you an example, Canadian Pension Fund has invested $75 billion in taking over the assets, whether it is InvITs or REITs or direct investment project. This is a new source of money. You complete a project, there's a person to take it over, give you the money, and they live on an annuity-based model. So they're happy they get a monthly return, fixed return, and they're happy to invest a big ticket of money. And I know that they have further deep pocket to invest in India, basically. And this is not anymore limited to Canadian pension fund. You find even Australia, Middle East, and other funds have also come up where they're willing to invest, where they want to invest more money in the company. So this gives a high liquidity to the companies. Second, you see that there have been government made the ease of doing for them. They made an initiative. I know this real estate business infrastructure is extremely challenged, extremely difficult to do in India, extremely regulated, rightly mentioned by the speakers here. And then then you have no finances. It is only from last 7-8 years, 5-7 years, when the balance sheet has started looking better, easing it out. Government started REITs, government started InvITs. Again, they became a very good funding institution for the to take out the money from the investment. So the government even had a viability gap funding, which was never successful. Government introduced a scheme and in 2015, but the total amount of disbursal was just 3,000 crores, which was not a very big amount of money. Interesting. Government gave a interest-free loan to the states. In this budget also they announced almost a 1.5 lakh crore of loan to the states for 50 years tenure. Never see, they need to fund the state also. Who will fund the infrastructure at the local level there? So the government, biggest thing was that government introduced a national monetization pipeline. And this is the biggest cash out which an infra company could have taken for the government. And this came out in 2021 to 2025. Targets was raising 6 lakh crore by leasing or selling brownfield public assets. And about 3.85 lakh crore was mobilized in the previous 3 years. So this is something you monetize your assets and the government gives you the money basically. The target was 5 billion actually. The amount that has been done has been much less actually compared to what was the target. But yes, there is a scheme where it is working. I may be a little wrong in my figures, but there is a scheme again where the government is taking advantage. You can monetize your pipeline and you can cash out your assets which are ready to be done. None of these were earlier there. So you cannot, the government started green financing. Never thought about it. And green financing and gain momentum through green bonds and sustainability-linked investment to fund climate-friendly infrastructure. And what has happened? Yes Bank raised 1,000 crores in 2000, as back as 7-8 years back. And then there were other companies basically who have raised money through the green bonds, infrastructure, sustainable bonds, which was not even there 5 years back. And this is an additional funding requirement. You can meet the requirement. You can pump in the money. You can invest on those companies which are sustainable, which are green in nature. So there have been definitely much focus by the government on infrastructure. So today you are not stressed the way you used to be stressed. Today banking balance sheets are not stressed the way the banks were stressed earlier. Basically, the delinquency is less. Fortunately, the infra and everything went well. The prices went well. The business started flourishing. That's another addition. But fundamentally, the infrastructure funding scenario is much better than what it was there 7, 8 years back. Where there were two challenges that time, just to let you know. One was the funding, and second was the land. Land government sorted it out because of the administrative matters. And funding government doesn't do it, but make the schemes actually make the institutions there to fund to do it. So I can only say it's much better what it was said earlier.
Point very well taken. I'll go across to Mr. Ryan Karanjawala. I remember a long conversation ago with Puneet Chatwala of IHCL, and he said that hotels, for example, are very, what you can say, employment intensive. They generate lots of employment, and also as a share of the total revenue, the employment expenditure is the highest in these kind of companies. Do you think it benefits us both ways to promote tourism? You generate a lot of jobs. Also,
Yes.
the country gets in foreign exchange.
So two things. As you rightly pointed out, and Niranjan also pointed out, the benefit of tourism is foreign exchange, also intensive employment. Now, the question also is, which I said in the beginning, was the reason why I hit upon tourism as something to speak about is that there are less moving parts. You see, India already has many scenic spots which can become tourist attractions. They're already there. Nature has created that for you. You don't have to do anything. Secondly, India has another inbuilt advantage over most countries, which is that our tourists who come into India are not only foreigners coming here for the first time, but also part of the huge Indian diaspora, which keeps coming back to its home country in order to just refresh itself with their roots. So you have a double whammy as far as inbound tourism is concerned. But nevertheless, you're still not able to take full advantage of it. There's something called the Travel Tourism Development Index. You're the 39th country out of 113 countries on it. And tourism can be, according to me, there can be a simple fix. The government should isolate 100 tourist spots which they feel should be developed. Then they should make use of one huge weapon in their armory, something that the state of Texas recently used when it got Elon Musk to come from California to Texas, something which the country of Dubai has been using for years, which is the power of non-taxation. All they have to do is to say that in these 100 spots, anybody who develops a hotel in the next 10 years, starts construction today, completes it within 3 years, will get a tax exemption straight away for the next 7 years after he starts developing, after the hotel starts functioning. Once you do that, then the restriction on people putting in capital because they feel that they won't get their return immediately goes away. And the government loses nothing because you lose tax in the future, but you wouldn't have got that tax anyway because that hotel may not have come up. So the simplest thing is to give this incentive, say in these 100 spots, anyone who builds hotels will get a tax rebate for so many years. You work out what you think is viable. We'll get a tax rebate for so many years. Once that happens, you will suddenly find a lot of people coming in. Then what you have to do? You have to add, as Niranjan pointed out, the infrastructure which brings the tourist to that spot. So then what do you do? Airports have to be built, or even on railways. All you have to do is to create luxury trains, pure luxury trains, so that they take people in a comfortable way to that tourist spot. Once you do that, you will probably find a lot more tourists coming in. Secondly, you also have to now start modernizing yourself with the rest of the world. For example, there's nothing that stops you from saying that in these 5 cities or in these 5 or 10, 15, 20 tourist spots, I'll also allow a gambling casino, provided the income is in foreign exchange. So the foreigners can come and bet there. So they get something like what they get in Vegas, except that the Indian population doesn't get to participate that much. And that takes away the problem that the government feels it faces if the Indian population starts gambling. It's innovations like this that the government has to think through. The other thing you can do is all the activity around tourism, reduce the GST on it. Because you have to remember that the competition in order to attract customers is not Taj, Oberoi versus Four Seasons and some other well-known international chain. It is India versus Bangkok, India versus Vietnam. I mean, I travel not much, but and whenever I travel within the country, fortunately, because I stay in hotel chains which are also clients of mine, I always get a very competitive rate. But nevertheless, when I went 3 years ago to the Four Seasons, the new Four Seasons in Bangkok and stayed there, I was shocked at what kind of luxury you get at what competitive price. I mean, the hotels in Bangkok are better and cheaper than the hotels in India. That's why a lot of people, and Niranjan will also remember, a lot of people have started having their weddings in Bangkok or in Dubai or in Qatar, because suddenly those cities are offering you deals which the Indian cities are not able to match. So the only way to do it is to make the cost of construction of hotels much cheaper. You can only do that by allowing people a straight tax exemption for several years. And once that happens, the infrastructure comes out. Then over the years, you'll see and reap the benefits, because India has 4 separate kinds of tourism. You've got the inbound foreigner, you've got the inbound diaspora, you've also got medical tourism, which in India is quite a lot. And the fourth, you have religious tourism, because they have so many holy spots which people want to visit, which once you do them up and you make them accessible and you make them nice to stay in, people will come from abroad also in order to just see your culture in its best and purest form. So these are things that the government should look at and the government should do. And it's not at a great cost, because if you use the power of tax exemption, then that's a power that you can very well and easily utilize. And that's what I think should be done.
Point. Very well taken. I'll go to Mr. Nahin Raheja for his further explanation on the incentive that the country will get by allowing PPP to flourish, which is public-private partnerships to flourish, A, in housing, B, in infrastructure, which is roads and highways. Also, hospitals are one place where we see PPP doing well nowadays. Many municipalities are doing it. Over to you.
Yeah. Before I touch on this, one important aspect which was left was that we must understand we have one big asset, that is demographic. We have the largest workforce lying with us. This is an input for anything which can actually generate a lot of growth. And we are to look into it from that perspective, how to put it to use to create maximum output out of it. So this aspect needs to be addressed by government by putting brains together. And this is to be done today. This is to be done today, because unemployment is otherwise going to be a big burden on the economy. So now coming on the other aspect which you mentioned, PPP. PPP, let me say that wherever we have seen these PPP models, the only challenge is where the government at times has over regulation, and the people who do not know the subject try to come and poke their nose into it, and try to stop. I think in PPP projects, we really need to work together. Government should think that they are not over us, they are our partners, and they should be supporting. Government needs to look into the PPP projects from the perspective of not that we are controllers and the other is executor. It should be a thought process where we are working as a team and we have to make everything successful. So with that perspective, the PPP can go into a lot of projects. It can go into mass housing, affordable housing, generation, as I mentioned, the independent, sustainable cities also. So there also government needs to participate into that. When government does not have to spend, government has only the authority and power to give clearances, or at the most. It had been very unfortunate that we had land acquisition amendment bill in 2012, and thereafter land is also one aspect which is required for any development, be it townships, be it highways or other type of infrastructure. Now, that act has itself what I feel is a great burden on the Indian, for the growth of the Indian economy. So these factors need to be seen. And as Ranjanji mentioned, our biggest challenge in this country today is ease of doing business and multiple over-regulation. On real estate particularly, every department, every ministry, has got something or the other to poke their nose into. If you talk about environment, you there in that also in a city like if I talk about Gurgaon, you have to take Aravali clearance is separate, forest clearance is separate, environment clearance is separate, pollution is separate. Then there is another Sultanpur Lake, periphery 5 kilometer zone, whether it is there, it is separate. How many clearances we have to take in one ministry? When it comes to taxation, there's so many in other verticals. Why can't government take care of all these things, and allow us to work? Entrepreneurs should be meant for working. They should not be meant for doing all these files, paperwork, and when with over 50, and I think I'll say including when it goes to RERA as well. At some points, it is some projects, it is more than 70, 80 different clearances. So we have to comply. How much time we need for all this? We should be focusing upon quality, technology, innovations, production, how to make better sustainable housing. We should be actually entrepreneurs should be working on that, not upon how many compliances you have been able to do, and if you have failed on one, now you go for legal litigations. There we go to Karanjawala Saab and company, and we take the help. It should not be required. It should not be required. We should be allowed to work. Similarly, as I talk about my this demographic assets, you need to create an environment where they are allowed to work. So once they are allowed to work, let me tell you, our country, our people are very good. They are very hardworking, and we have high value system. When they go across the world, they really perform. Indians really, as NRIs, they really perform everywhere they are there. So we need to give this atmosphere within our country. And this over-regulation, multiple taxations, multiple things, we need to do away with it. Why Dubai has the desert,
Correct.
has grown so well? Because they have created an ecosystem which is friendly. We need to create those ecosystems in our country. Why should our people be going out for studies? Why we can't do it here? Because it is more relevant to our country, more relevant to our, different cultures, different areas. We have different type of handicrafts, local productions and all. We can actually innovate, promote, and be the world leaders. Double digit, it's within your hands. It is within your hands, within your reach. But how fast can we actually think and implement?
Point very well taken. You gave a very good explanation on the hurdles that we need to overcome to maybe build cities and infrastructure like Dubai, Singapore. One final comment from Dr. Hiranandani. We are almost out of time.
The challenges of India are huge, but the opportunities are greater. So while we are discussing all the points that have been raised in the panel, the answer is that the solutions are possible. This is shown 35 kilometers of national highway per day, acquisition, litigation, payment, contracts, structuring, rollout, delivery. 22,000 crores worth of bridge completed in 3 years in Mumbai, having been done, extraordinary. So when we really want to do it, it can be done. So all the mentions that we have talked about, starting from what I think everybody has directly, indirectly mentioned, ease of doing business, these can be solved. There has to be a top-down and a bottom-up approach, whether it's in tourism, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in airports, all these aspects. One thing I think is very clear, and I think Mr. Rakesh Nangia will confirm, that today for a good project, money is available. Whether it's available through lending, through an IPO, through an FDI, through REITs, through any other factors, money is available. Government for 3 lakh crores in the Maharashtra government MMR region, we were able to get money, 70% of the project money at 0.1% interest from JICA for 50-year loan with a 15-year sabbatical. So money in the world is available. If you do what everybody is speaking, which is ease of doing business, rolling out these projects and getting it done completely in time, the answer is there. Double-digit growth will happen, unemployment will go away, skills will be there, and we will be a country which will be second to none in the whole world. We will not be number 4, we will not be number 3, we will be number 1, and we can do it fast. Last, the demographics are an asset and a liability. If you don't use demographics, there are huge liabilities. You have to give freebies to everybody. But if you can skill them and give them employment and create these opportunities, they are an asset. So how do we convert all the possibilities that we have today into assets, roll it out? Prime Minister talks about it. All the things are happening at the top level, but I think the rollout at the bottom, still a lot of things to be done in order to get it complete.
Thank you for being, in a sense, positive that things will improve with greater collaboration, greater feedback from the government. As I have seen, both Dr. Hiranandani and Naveen Raheja have constantly been giving inputs to the governments via industry forums all these years, various business forums. We appreciate that all of you could make time and join a topic that concerns India's infrastructure growth at a time when, if we don't do it in the next 30 years, we'll become an old country. And as they say, when demographically you are old, it's very difficult to build anything because you're basically catering to the older population and your social security problems are much higher. I think we are young and the next 30 years is the time to build this. This is what the government says. We'll revisit this topic in a few months. I'd like to thank Dr. Hiranandani, Ryan Karanjawala, Managing Partner of Karanjawala and Company, Rakesh Nangia, Chairman Nangia Anderson India, Naveen Raheja of Raheja Builders, for making time on this very important topic and contributing. Appreciate your joining us. Thank you so very much. Thank you.